welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast for our final segment of the day, where we are now just about a month into the NBA offseason. I think that the finals wrapped up on June 17th, so coming here on July 12th, we are just about 30 days past, and there are still a number of questions that remain sort of unresolved in terms of some of the bigger names and franchises in the NBA that we're going to be diving into here. The first of which is, are the Bucks going to shake anything up? We have been hearing about the idea of a Brook Lopez trade for a couple of months now, and I'm not sure if we can really expect anything to come here. You look at what the Bucks did this offseason. Now, I do like DeLon Wright. I've talked about this on the show in the past, that, for him going from a not very good organization, I think he started last year on the Washington Wizards, and, was kind of being wasted away there. The Heat ended up acquiring him halfway through the year, and he was fine. Ultimately, he had just about no chemistry with the team, and the Heat were a little bit of a mess as well in terms of injuries and such, but, when you look at what the Bucks have actually done this offseason, there's really not much to that, especially with the draft, where you talk about a Bucks team that you saw was definitely not as deep as the Pacers, who they faced in the first round, and there is a very good argument to be made that if the Bucks are fully healthy, that they are able to beat the Pacers, possibly handedly, with Giannis and Lillard if they were fully healthy, but they end up dropping that game. Feels like they needed players to help round out what they had. And with the draft, they got two project players to play under Doc Rivers, who last year we saw Rivers entirely abandon some of the youth minutes to the likes of Andre Jackson Jr. and with Marjon Beauchamp, both of which had shown some sort of upside. Now, I feel like that would be one of the bigger things if I'm Doc, especially I'm pretty high on Andre Jackson. I feel like he can be a very good perimeter defender that they desperately need, considering where their defense was last season. I feel like he's a very coachable player as well, played under Dan Hurley at UConn, and I think can shape into, something substantial there. I forgot to mention as well, they did also sign Taurean Prince as well to a veteran minimum. And Prince, I thought, he played probably more for the Lakers than you would prefer if you are a championship contending team, but I don't think that Prince is bad. I know a lot of Lakers fans were sort of dissing him throughout the course of the year, but he's a fine player, and he can definitely, make up for some of those Jay Crowder minutes. Now, there's still a number of those more veteran players that were contributing for them last year that have remained unsigned, including Patrick Beverley and Jay Crowder, and I think there's another name in that category as well, but the Bucks are going to have to find a way to sort of round out their roster, and that's a start, but are they going to do anything to actually sort of change the identity of what they have? And again, the Brook Lopez trade would sort of be the only way to go about that, but being in the financial situation that they currently are in anyways, I'm not sure if that is ever going to happen. Now, if they were to trade Lopez, I think that a team that would absolutely be in the running for a potential suitor is the New Orleans Pelicans, where my biggest question about them, and I understand they're not exactly the sexiest team to talk about on a national scale, but I believe in the infrastructure that they have, and they could surprise some people next year if fully healthy. Specifically, you're looking at Zion and Brandon Ingram for that one, but who are they planning on starting at center right now? Because as things stand, Yves Missi, the first-round pick that they took this past year out of Baylor, is the only center on the roster. And I've said it a number of times. I like Missi. I think that he is a good player, and I would buy into him long-term. I think that Pelicans fans should be excited about that draft selection. But he's not going to be somebody you can heavily lean on, especially in this Western Conference for the entirety of the season, and specifically looking at the playoffs when he has to face the likes of Nikola Jokic or Anthony Davis or Karl Anthony Towns. They're going to be at a loss there. And, you look at Zion with maybe his weight and his general size, that he is could be considered a big, but he's been kind of sneakily massively disappointing in terms of rebounding throughout the course of his career. And I think that would be a massive hole if he's playing your 5 for you. So they definitely need to make a move. Brook Lopez could be an interesting one. And, I think that the Pelicans have a number of forwards and that they could sort of throw in a deal here. Now, contract-wise, I don't have the trade machine running for me right now, and that's obviously a whole different game of limbo that you have to play for both of these teams, considering, the Bucks hovering around that second luxury tax apron, so it's a difficult sort of way to go about that, but it is something interesting to take into consideration there. But I was just talking about the Bucks and whether or not they were going to shake anything up. Same can sort of be said for the Miami Heat as to, is anything going to change for them next year? Because the Heat are coming off of, I've said in the past it's 2 years. Really, it's only one season removed from being in the NBA Finals in 2023. And you feel like you have a lot of those same key players. Now they just lost Caleb Martin this offseason. They lost Gabe Vincent last offseason. So it's not the exact same roster, but it is, mostly a lot of the same contributing players. And whether or not that is going to be enough. And especially coming off of a weird end to the season where you have Jimmy Butler, who was, of course, injured during the play-in tournament game against Philadelphia. He is talking all this noise during, those coming weeks, and you have Pat Riley calling him out because of it at his exit interview that, for Jimmy, who has missed a number of games since coming to Miami, that you kind of feel like you need more from someone like him, especially for how much he talks. And again, he led them to a finals appearance in both 2020 and 2023. So you can't be critical about Jimmy Butler in terms of, is he, conductive to winning? The answer is pretty clearly yes, but does he still have that same sort of superpower where we've seen playoff Jimmy, come into play, especially, mostly so looking at the Milwaukee series from 2023, but, there are still a lot of things that are kind of unresolved in terms of what is going to be different next year. And I think that health is obviously the number one thing you point to, that Jimmy Butler wasn't healthy. Terry Rozier was a midseason acquisition, and he wasn't healthy. Tyler Hero missed a lot of the regular season, so you're thinking that maybe if they all come together, that they can develop a chemistry that, has more success moving forward. But at the same time, Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero are on these big money deals, and you don't necessarily feel great about their level of production from a value standpoint based off of how much they're being paid. The Heat are probably going to be hoping, I would have to imagine, that Tyler Hero can re-up some of his stock and his trade value and can end up being a deadline acquisition for somebody. I've talked about the fact that maybe they're a suitor for Brandon Ingram halfway through the season. I don't know if that's happening now because I'm not sure necessarily what the Heat, it would be Hero, maybe one of their draft picks from these past couple years, but it feels like the Heat are also are going to be at least somewhat reliant on the likes of Jaime Jaquez Jr. We'll see how much Kel'el Ware plays this upcoming year as he continues to impress during the Summer League, but I don't believe that there is a super clean-cut answer for what the Heat is, and I talked about this earlier this week, that I am a believer that with a fully healthy season, this team can look like a different version of themselves, a better version of themselves, specifically on the offensive end, where at times they were atrocious. But we'll sort of have to see there, and if it's a wait and see, it's wait and see. But the Heat really haven't done anything to, I would say, address significant needs. But again, we'll see on that. And then very quickly here, last question here is, what are the Jazz doing? Because they are also in a situation here where they're just kind of sitting in place. And for a team that is, I think they finished, 12th or so in the Western Conference last year, and a team that, 2 years ago was actually in the play-in tournament conversation before they ended off selling off some pieces for the sake of trying to be a little bit worse, as well as they were, hunting the Victor Wembanyama draft, at least, marginally. But last year they just weren't that good, and Lauri Markkanen wasn't quite as special as he was a couple years ago when he made his first All-Star appearance. And Lauri is, I said it before, he might be, in terms of playing basketball today in 2024, it's between him and Paul George that would be the most impactful player movements of the offseason. And the Jazz do have all the cards where there's zero level of desperation, and if you know anything about Danny Ainge, the general manager, he sort of operates without a timetable typically. He just makes the best move possible at any given time, at least what he views as the best possible move to get the most value possible, and worries about the wins and losses column later. But you're looking at a 2025 draft that has a ton of standout freshman talent that's coming into college basketball this upcoming year. And, especially with Cooper Flagg, who is expected to be, a grade A prospect, that the Jazz, are they going to make a move here and try and pick a direction, or are they just going to keep floating around until something glaring comes across their table and they fire off in either direction towards competing or tanking? But a lot of different ways to look at their situation. Let me know how you feel, and let me know what questions you still have about the current landscape of the NBA. But that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for tuning into the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to host this show. Remember to like, follow, subscribe wherever you keep up with us. Be sure to check us out on social media as well for more exclusive short content. And we will be back on Monday afternoon. Have yourselves a great weekend. Take care. We will see you on Monday.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to